YouTube! What the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here. Got some Empire gameplay. Hellblaster volley guns? Cannons? Handguns? Wait. It gets better, folks. Who is this? That's the great Patriarch, Balthasar Gelt. So, yep, he is leading the army. And in terms of the army, I've got 2 swordsmen on either flank, and they are supported by an Empire captain. In the center, I have a couple of great swords, and this is kind of an odd map, and I felt like this army was a good pick for this map. My artillery is going to be meant to shoot across the void at the Dwarfs. The Dwarfs do have 1 artillery unit. They have a gyrocopter, several thunderers, a front line of warriors with great weapons. There's also dwarf warriors, a few longbeards. But I've also brought another surprise for my dwarven enemy here, which is a bunch of outriders who can forward deploy. I figured if the dwarf's attention was focused on my front lines with his thunderers, I would be able to focus on his back lines with my outriders, and just to really throw in all the fun units that I could here, we got an Empire outrider with grenade launcher here. So prepare for grenades. Grenades incoming. Yeah, you can see I'm getting shot up over here. I decided to pull back from his thunderers because I have a superior position, and I can try and force my opponent to react because I have the artillery advantage. I have mobile firearms, basically wreaking havoc on him right now. You can see that these grenade launchers doing massive damage to these longbeards back here. Definitely worthwhile for me, and my opponent's thunderers are not in position to do anything about it right now. The Hellblaster volley gun is doing some initial firing. At this range, it's not going to be terribly effective. And I took some damage to my infantry from his thunderers in a big hurry, but I'm causing immense damage with my cannons to his, and then the missed shots are actually tearing apart that dwarf warrior, and then these longbeards are getting shot in the back. So it did some good damage there, took away almost half the health on a longbeard. Say that was certainly worth my while, and we've gotten the attention of his gyrocopter, so now I've pulled back a bit. My Hellblaster volley gun's still kind of in a bit of an awkward position here, like my guys are standing right in the way. It's like, hey, am I in the way? Is this a dangerous spot to stand? Someone let me know. Yeah, may not be the best. So I want to try and destroy the dwarf cannon unit so that it can't return any fire. And then I just want to keep my outriders safe. I'm going to use my grenade launcher outriders to lure the gyrocopters over to my waiting outriders. Outriders are good versus armor. They don't have a ton of ammo, and if you're shooting straight into the front of shields, they won't be great, and the range is limited compared to most foot skirmishers. Balthasar, why did I bring Balthasar? Balthasar can debuff armor, and he can also hit people with a pretty significant debuff, which is this one right here, the transmutation of lead. So I can hit the dwarf infantry pretty significantly with a lot of debuffs, and I have the ability to summon quite a lot of winds of magic with Balthasar, and he's relatively cheap, which allowed me to forward the Empire captains and all the artillery to gain the artillery advantage. So here I was hoping that the immobility of the dwarves would be a good opportunity for me. My opponent here bombing my outriders. He's trying desperately to get rid of them because they're wreaking havoc back here. He doesn't have the units to fight back against them. He has turned his shields towards me, which is smart. He does have these trollhammer torpedoes. He was maybe expecting a flying lord. And trollhammer torpedoes are not the greatest alone, but I think whenever they come in numbers, like with a couple of them, they can be effective versus monstrous units. But in this case, I didn't bring any monstrous units. So, and I didn't bring any melee cavalry either, because melee cavalry usually gives the dwarves a good opportunity to try and get you in a melee position you don't want to be in. I'm going to go ahead and stand off and do some skirmishing. Not exactly what I want to do with dwarf skirmishers, because they are good. They have shields, but with the support of my artillery, feeling like I can afford to go ahead and trade a little bit of fire here, especially since in the meantime that his thunderers are distracted, I'm back here just wreaking havoc on units with the outriders. They're not getting a ton of kills just yet, but it's because they're doing all the initial damage. And then these outriders over here, again, getting decent numbers of kills, but it's the amount of damage to his infantry. Just look at the havoc I've already wreaked in his back lines here. And we're going to do some more. I'm going to wheel up behind another dwarf warrior unit and just start unleashing it all over these guys. So you can see the dwarf skirmishers are annoyingly effective. They're shields. And then my cannons don't have the greatest of angles here. They're definitely going to be returning fire. But a few of my cannons have some rocks and stuff in the way But the Hellblaster volley gun is just brutal, the way it pierces armor. The cannons would be better if my opponent was more blobbed up, but he's not. I am going to get rid of the gyrocopters here in a minute. They were kind of annoying me, so I'm going to force them off. And then my outriders were going to come in on the flank over here, but he responded with this thunder, so I'm going to have to call that off. But I wanted to get into his flank and cause even more damage. Again, back here, just wrecking Dwarf Warriors. I've already picked up a chevron on these outriders, so the number of kills here may not be indicative of just how much damage these guys have induced, which is a lot. So if the dwarves don't have a unit available to answer outriders, they will be in trouble. And like these warriors with great weapons, they don't have shields, so it'll be continually problematic. You see my cannons here doing a lot of damage to the thunders. His other thunder are now forced, which leaves my handgunners free in the front to just fire away. One of my handgunner units had to regroup after being soundly thrashed by some thunderers. Yeah, pretty good engagement for me so far, weakening up his units, and I do have a lot of cheap units like swords, so I'm expecting Balthasar to debuff the obviously significant dwarf infantry. Let's look at the Hellblaster volley gun's effects here as it fires away at dwarf infantry that's approaching. Yeah, you can see the Hellblaster gun is the one that's kind of blowing up the dwarves when it hits them with the heavy armor-piercing rounds. And then I've got my gunners doing some work. He's got some regrouped gunners here now too. But yeah, so far a pretty fun battle. I think I'm in a pretty strong position. My volley gun's already got 58 kills and almost picked up a chevron. My opponent's going to split up and try and assault my position from multiple angles, which he should. Over here the gyrocopter parked and wanted to fight my outriders, so I turned and fired on him with the armor-piercing damage. Outriders are a very good matchup against that. I'm going to have to pull back my guns. My opponent's coming in, so I'm going to unleash a last couple volleys with the Hellblaster gun, and then I'm going to have to retreat it. It's up to 79 kills, so I picked up another 20 kills pretty quickly there. You can see that just firing everything in that I can. Actually picked up another few kills right there at the last second. And then we're going to use these outriders. I'm going to move in closer here as well and fire hopefully as point blank as possible so that we get maximum accuracy and damage. He's going to come around with his warriors, but it's going to take the dwarf units some time to actually assail my flanks, which should give me time to focus in the center. So as he charges up the center, comes my great swords, and then I'm going to immediately use Balthasar to do a pretty massive debuff with the transmutation here. So it's going to do 44% weapon damage reduction for the dwarves, so you can see it hits their melee attack, so they're going to be doing almost no damage. And then I'm going to pick a single unit over here and hit them with a Plague of Rust to take away a bunch of their armor, so my swordsmen will be more effective against the dwarf warriors. And I picked the swordsmen because they had shields, decent melee defense for a cheap infantry unit, and I knew that the dwarves don't have a ton of like high attack units. The Empire captains were meant to buff up the leadership of my swordsmen so that the dwarf player couldn't easily rout them. And this is going to be a little bit fun here in a moment. So my opponent's assailing my front lines. Definitely a good fight for me. Great swords are absolutely wreaking havoc, and they will do extremely well in this fight. His Trollhammer torpedoes are, I don't know if they're close enough to fire, but they're getting shot up by a lot of my units. But it's at this point his dwarf warriors start to get pretty close, and I'm going to put these guys right in the middle of a crossfire. So my handgunners are going to turn and open fire, and these are dwarf warriors with great weapons. They don't have shields. So my outriders are firing from behind, and my gunners are firing from the front. So it's going to be an absolute firing squad, and then over here I pull a unit of swordsmen up to come and intercept the other dwarf warriors so that they can't get to my artillery or skirmishers. But this dwarf warrior with great weapon here just gets killed so quickly by all the gunfire that they are out of the fight. But now my opponent's approaching from the other flank with two more warriors with great weapons. Again, the frontline fight definitely swinging in my favor. There's now some longbeards here, so it's going to turn into a little bit more of a grind out. And the Dwarf Lord is in combat as well. Balthasar's just staying back and recharging spells. Check this out. My handgunners turn around, start firing into the next Dwarf Blob. And then the Hellblaster volley gun's going to open like point blank. Cannons potentially going to open up point blank. And then my Outriders are going to come up to the top of the hill. Yeah, look at that. Cannons point blank, dolly charging straight in. I bring another sword unit out to intercept the other Dwarf Warrior and then hit it with the Plague of Rust. But the warriors that were here attacking my cannons are not going to get a whole lot accomplished. I drop another transmutation So all the dwarf infantry over here are going to get massively debuffed. And then the warriors attacking my cannons and other units back here are going to get shot up. So his flank attack's going to fail here, and that just leaves the mainline fight. The only units I'm really concerned about that he has left is this Thunder is continuing to fire and do some pretty decent work. So he's got some regrouped ones here as well. The Trollhammer torpedo's firing now, and it's getting kills because it's just firing into a blob of my infantry. I'm not able to kill it super fast. Fortunately for me, though, this thing is meant for anti-large, but I am giving it a blob to shoot at the moment. Yeah, all of his flank attacks were shut down with a couple of swordsmen and guns, so this has been a real firing squad type army. Let's check out the kills on the Hellblaster. 101 kills on the Hellblaster, and it's picked up a chevron and about halfway to a second. So it is definitely getting some work done. I'm going to move my artillery up to where I can try to get a better shot, and then I'm moving Balthasar up on this cliff to kind of overwatch the final phases of the battle. This guy looks pretty cool. I hope he gets a little bit of work in the upcoming patch. Maybe some balancing or something that'll make him a little more competitive, because he really is a fun unit to use, and definitely enjoy bringing him. So I was glad I got an opportunity to put him on the battlefield in a situation where, like against the Dwarves, Balthasar could potentially be decent. I think in this map in particular, it made a lot of sense. I knew I was going to create bottlenecks for his debuffs. I knew I could gain an artillery advantage because the Empire artillery is cheaper than the Dwarves. So that's one thing. The Dwarf artillery is better, just pound for pound, in terms of it's more accurate and stuff, I believe. But yeah, the Empire can field some pretty good artillery. Stuff that the Dwarves have a harder time dealing with. I could have fielded steam tanks, but they're expensive, so being able to field 2 great cannons puts any Dwarf player in a bad spot in an artillery duel like this, just because the Empire units are so cheap. So we're going to come out with a pretty solid victory there. I do appreciate my opponent giving me a fun game and, you know, playing some good Dawi action there. I like that he had artillery, gyrocopters, all that stuff that kind of makes sense. I didn't bring a very typical Empire army, so I'm assuming that I probably caught him a bit off guard in terms of what I was going to bring, and that was the intention. Yeah, you can see the Outriders getting some solid kills. These Outriders with grenade launchers in the end get 40 kills, picked up a chevron. Same thing with the blaster gun and the great cannon. Now my swordsmen, I put chevrons on these guys before the fight, so that was not from fighting. But you can see my Empire captain is doing exactly what I wanted him to. Helping the infantry fight, tank out. They did a lot of damage to the Dwarf Lord because Balthasar can't be the one fighting. And then Balthasar didn't get any kills, but did exactly what I need him to. He basically nerfed the Dwarf infantry into an oblivion. You can see that they just weren't able to get any kills, and that is exactly what I needed him to do in this fight. I do hope you all enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun. Do appreciate MSI sponsoring the channel and the help they've given me recently with the new hardware. Keep an eye out for this Thursday. I'm going to review that, and then tell me what you want to see in the comments. I love making this content for you. It's a pleasure every day to hop on here and show it to you. So always feel free to give me some feedback. Can't wait to see you all tomorrow. HeirofCarthage, signing out for now, folks. See you next time.